Good evening. You're on the smoking section, and tonight I'm very happy to have Kenny Haisman as my guest. Kenny, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And Kenny, you know that this is Cambridge Citizens for Smokers' Rights. And Kenny, you were very helpful to us when we were discussing the smoking ban in public parks with the city council.
Yes.
And do you remember what you said mostly?
What I said is that I believe it's become a human rights issue, as opposed to just a smoking issue. I didn't feel that people were actually offended that if there was a separate area in the park, I feel that the smokers should be allowed to smoke there.
Right, and you also said something about cafes, like because, for example, they were talking about banning smoking in cafes.
Right.
Which they did at the Cambridge at the 1369.
Yes.
And what did you think about that? I mean, that was a choice of the 1369. Now, that was not the city council.
Right.
What did you think of that choice at...
Well, I felt it was discriminatory against smokers.
And you know a lot of smokers, I
Yes.
think, right?
I'm not a smoker, but a lot of my friends are.
And like our friend Paul.
Yes.
And our friend Billy.
Yes.
Now let me ask you, Kenny, you are a long-time resident of Cambridge.
Yes.
And you're living here now, right?
Yes. I lived in Somerville for a while, and then I came back to Cambridge a couple of years ago.
And some people think you are the mayor of Central Square.
Head nut.
You're the head nut.
Yeah.
How long have you been the head nut of Central Square?
Oh, probably 8-10 years.
Yeah, and did you have to run against a lot of people? Because we had an election here, as you know, and there was like did you have a lot of opponents in that? I mean, because in Cambridge there's no lack of nuts, that's for sure, right?
Right. I was in a social situation, and the guy sitting across from me said, may I ask what you do? And I said, sure. I said, I'm the head nut in Central Square, Cambridge.
And ever since then, you have been that. So, have you've seen Cambridge change? Do you think Cambridge has changed for the better or for the worse? What do you think?
Oh, pretty much for the better.
Really?
Yeah.
In what ways?
Well, everything looks so much newer, and I don't know if I'd feel the same way if I was looking for a job, because it seems to be a lot of the jobs have diminished.
In Cambridge?
In Cambridge.
But you worked for the Massport?
Massport Authority, yes.
For how long?
34 years.
Wow. And what did you get? Did they give you a watch, a pocket watch when you left?
Yes, they did. I don't have it
serious?
on, but they gave me a watch for 34 years of service, and they engraved my name on the back.
And was it pretty good?
I guess so. It's a pretty good quality watch. It's still going.
Really? But
Yeah.
you're not wearing it tonight?
No, I'm not wearing it tonight.
Kenny, why is it that you don't smoke?
I haven't smoked since about 82. What I didn't like, Steve, was the fact that if I ran out of cigarettes and I was home, I'd have to get it together to go out and buy cigarettes. That's pretty much it. And then I felt, I quit in 82, but I felt they were closing in on you if you were a smoker. And it was just a matter of time before they abolished smoking in the bars and restaurants, which they did.
Which they did around, do you remember what year that was approximately?
Gee, I'm not sure. But it wasn't that long ago. I'd say about 15 years ago they prohibited smoking in the bars.
And did you get involved at all when they were starting to do that? I mean, because
no.
But did you think at that time that it was a human rights issue? Or
pretty much, yeah. Yeah, I felt that way. That since they've been putting the hammer down, that it is a human rights issue.
Where do you think it's going to go from here? I mean, do you think like organizations like Cambridge Citizens for Smokers' Rights are going to be able to kind of stem the tide, perhaps?
I hope so. Yeah, I hope so. I'd like to see that.
Well, I mean, because I was just thinking we ate at right next door at,
Veggie Galaxy.
and it was like a diner.
Right.
And I remember when I was a kid, like all the diners had, restaurants had ashtrays on every table.
Right.
I mean, do you think the atmosphere was more relaxed in those days?
Yes. And not really recently, but maybe there was a time 10 years ago where they had these exhaust fans that sucked all the smoke out. So if people were smoking
Right.
in a restaurant such as Veggie Galaxy,
Yeah.
nobody would get offended. And it seemed to be that it must have offended the city council and throughout the country.
Well, our city council, and I always like to put in a plug for Mark McGovern. I mean, they essentially compromised on the public park smoking ban. Do you know what the status is of that right now?
No.
Well, essentially, the only parks where smoking is banned in the city of Cambridge are these very small parks, which are usually simply children's playgrounds. So, and I think that was, to a large extent, I think that Mark McGovern saw that to happen. I mean, he decided that a compromise would be better. Right. So I feel indebted to Mark McGovern. What do you think?
He seems to be a rational guy.
Human being?
Yeah.
Think he cares about human rights?
I think so.
Now, what about when you were a kid, did your parents smoke?
My father did.
And what did he smoke? What?
He smoked L&Ms.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I can't remember. What was their pitch? Do you remember their pitch at all? Yeah.
L&M's cigarettes taste good like a cigarette should.
No.
No?
Kenny, no. Come on.
Well,
Winston tastes good.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right.
Winston tastes good like a cigarette should. You
Yeah.
know, and it's funny because do you remember the controversy over that commercial?
No.
Well, people were upset with Winston because you're supposed to say Winston tastes good as a cigarette should, not like a cigarette. You know, it was like. So did you graduate from? You graduated from Ridge Tech, right?
No, Somerville High.
Up on Central.
On Highland Ave.
Yeah.
My last year and a half, I went to school in Somerville, but I was I'm pretty much born and raised in North Cambridge.
Right, and so your father smoked, and when I'm curious because like for example, I have a friend, and his parents smoked. Both of his parents smoked when he was a kid, and he didn't mind it at all. And he has never smoked in his life, and now secondhand smoke bothers him. But when he was a kid, in his house with his parents both smoking, it didn't bother him. Why? Are you ever bothered by secondhand smoke?
No.
Really? Because these days everybody is like, they go crazy about it. I think it's almost like, like The Exorcist, like if you sprinkle holy water on someone, people, if he's possessed, the person goes, it burns and so forth. People are almost like that with secondhand smoke.
Right.
The tiniest whiff.
I just never jumped on the bandwagon.
And you're staying off the bandwagon.
Yeah, right.
What about our friend Debbie? What is her attitude towards secondhand smoke?
You never know with Debbie.
Oh, you mean what?
She could feel like, one way now, and 5 minutes later she could feel differently.
She's like a hurricane, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you remember when they used to name all hurricanes after women?
Yes.
I mean, those were the good old days, right?
Yeah.
But you think, I was just in as we were in Veggie Galaxy, and I was thinking that, You know, there was a time in diners where people used to sit and drink coffee and smoke and smoke and smoke and smoke, and it seemed like there was more fun in those days.
Right.
Do you think so?
I think so. I think it was a more comfortable atmosphere.
Do you think we'll ever see that again?
No,
You don't.
never. No.
No, never. You don't think? I think someday that we in the smokers' rights movement. There are not a lot of us, but there are some of us. I think some of us are thinking that the whole anti-smoking movement is going to fall flat on its face at some point. Because tobacco is a really nice thing, and people like it, and people have smoked tobacco for 8,000 years in the New World, and there have been times before when tobacco has been vilified, but it's bounced back. Do you think that's not a possibility?
No, I just feel that those who own the gold make the golden rules.
Aha. And you think the gold owners are anti-tobacco?
Yeah.
People like Bill Gates, for example.
Oh, yeah.
Mark Zuckerberg, perhaps.
Yes.
So your father smoked L&M. What was your brand of cigarette?
I smoked Marlboros.
Marlboro Red.
Marlboro Red.
And you know how much they are right now?
They're big money. They're like $11, $12.
And do you know what the tax is on a package of cigarettes in Massachusetts? When you combine the federal and the state taxes?
Offhand, no. You mean they're going to add a tax
Well,
to
the
that
tax that they
$11, $12?
have, no, but what of that $12 is tax?
Oh, what? Oh, I see what you mean, Steve. No, I don't.
What do you think it is?
Oh, it's probably got to be at least $4 or $5.
Yeah, that's correct. You got it right on the money, so to speak. Now, some of us in the smokers' rights movement have moved. I've met people in the smokers' rights movement who were very strongly liberal, but because they were smokers and they felt that generally it was the liberal politicians who have been most active in legislating against smoking, these people have moved to the right somewhat, or towards the
Middle, anyways.
yeah, or towards libertarianism.
Right.
What is we had an election last night, primary election. What's your feeling, towards libertarianism? Because in terms of human rights and smoking.
Oh, my feeling of libertarianism is I support it 100%.
Libertarianism.
Yes.
Do you have any friends who are like real libertarians?
Offhand, I'm not sure if I do right now.
Because you meet in that group at the Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah, I do meet.
Do we have any libertarians in that group?
I believe so. Yes. Yes, I believe so.
And what about our friend Chris Murphy? You think he's on that in that?
I'm not sure. Yeah, he leans that way. That's for sure.
You think so?
Yeah.
What did you think about?
He's a non-smoker.
Yeah, yeah. Do you have any smokers in there?
Oh yes, we do.
Can you name a few?
There's Bill Bollinger, and there were a couple who aren't around anymore, but there seems to be maybe just a couple left.
What about Cronin, Paul?
No, he's not a smoker.
But he's been very helpful to us in our movement, I think.
Yes.
So tell me what.
If anybody's a libertarian, it would be Paul.
Cronin.
Yeah.
Now, what did you think about the elections last night? Were you surprised that Capuano lost?
Well, he put it pretty good in the paper this morning. He said, out with the old, in with the new. Not for him, but for her.
For her. So
she's the new, he's the old.
Yeah, and he's not that old. I mean, he's only 66 years old.
Yeah.
But how old is she, do you think?
I think she's probably middle 40s.
Wow, that sounds young, but of course, as everybody likes to point out, John F. Kennedy was 46, I think, when he was, or 42 when he
42.
And he was a fantastic. Did you know that he was a cigar smoker?
I understand that, yeah.
And the night before he signed the Cuban embargo where we would not buy anything from Cuba, he asked his press secretary, Pierre Salinger, to go out and around Washington and buy him 1,000 Cuban cigars the night before.
Oh, no kidding.
That's according to what Pierre Salinger has said many times publicly. And so when you quit smoking, did you have a hard time?
No, I think I was ready to give them up. That's possibly what happened to me, because I had read something in the Reader's Digest. They said if you want to give up cigarettes, hold your breath and count to whatever amount of seconds it was at the time. Was it 30 or 40? So I'd hold my breath every time I craved a cigarette. I held my breath, and what I desired was air.
Oh, really?
Result of holding my
Is
breath.
that right? Huh.
It took over my desire for cigarette.
Well, that almost scares me, actually. Now, some people say cigarettes are very addictive. Do you think that's the case?
I think they were for me, yeah.
But you didn't have any trouble giving up smoking.
Well, I didn't have a lot of trouble. I mentioned that to a doctor about the fact that I held my breath. And he said, I think the real issue is you were ready to give them up.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
But I mean, you didn't go through any kind of withdrawal or anything like that.
No.
Well, I mean, what do you think of these claims that the anti-smokers make that tobacco is so terribly addictive? I mean, it seems like in your case you gave them up and you didn't have any. I mean, you may have craved them a little bit, but it's not like giving up alcohol where you get the shakes or you got to go to detox to give up opioids. Do you think they could be wrong about that, exaggerating?
They do. I think they do exaggerate it, yeah.
Do you think there are any other areas of the anti-smoking movement which are exaggerated? I mean, like...
Well, possibly the secondhand smoke is exaggerated. As big as the Boston Common is, I don't believe they allow smoking in the Boston Common at all.
Well, they don't allow smoking in any public park in the city of Boston.
Oh.
Or any beach.
Wow. I didn't realize they didn't allow any smoking at all in the Boston Common, but I guess they do.
Do you think the anti-smoking movement is like a kind of fascistic, perhaps?
Fascist?
Yeah.
No, not really. I think it's a human rights issue.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, do you think they're just taking people's rights away willy-nilly?
I believe to some degree they are, yeah.
You know, because I mean, like you can get fined for $250 for having a cigarette in Boston Common. Do you think it's strange, for example, that we're now, that marijuana is becoming legal and cigarettes are becoming almost illegal?
I know that. I didn't think it was going to happen with tobacco. I did vote to legalize marijuana, and then now, of course, I'm second guessing myself.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Why? Why? What is causing? I mean, we all second guess ourselves, and people say that's terrible to second guess oneself, but.
Well, there was an article in the paper, I believe, in the last week or so, about 4 young guys that were down like I believe it was the Braintree area, and they were involved in a car crash that killed all 4 of them, and they find out that I think it was the driver that was under the influence of pot, and so they believe it points to that.
Really? You keep up with current events pretty carefully, right?
To some degree, yeah.
I mean, do you read the Globe more or less every day?
Globe and Herald, yeah.
Both?
Yeah.
And, well, that's not a good thing, right? If pot is, going to See, that's one thing I always I want people to understand. As bad as you may think tobacco might be, which I don't, it doesn't interfere with your driving. It doesn't interfere with your ability to operate dangerous machinery. It doesn't impair your judgment. You're not going to do something really stupid because you smoke, whereas certainly if you take opioids or if you drink too much or if you smoke marijuana, all of those things become very questionable.
Right.
I mean, I never heard of anybody crashing his car because he smoked too many cigarettes
Right.
or beating up his wife.
Right.
Did you ever, speaking of beating, was Cambridge a much more rough place?
Oh, yeah.
40 years ago?
Sure was, yeah.
Tell me a little bit about it.
Well, there was a lot more bars in every square and on Mass Ave Strip and so forth. It was sort of like more of a blue collar area, and those people, they couldn't wait to get to the bars after work. And it seems to be a little bit less of that now.
Or maybe before work, too, some of them.
Yeah.
But you haven't had a drink for a while.
No.
So you've been really on the straight and narrow
Yes.
for a long time.
Yes.
Did you ever go to the Bradford in Central?
Oh, yeah. I've been in the Bradford.
That was the wildest bar I'd ever been in my life.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I was in there and, guys were getting thrown out and there were fights going on and...
Yeah.
And it was really, I mean, it was funny, but it was at the same time a little bit dangerous.
Yeah.
What is your plan now? Do you plan to stay in Cambridge or
I would like to. I'd like to. I'd like to find housing in Cambridge.
And what's going to happen with the boarding, the rooming house that you're living in now? You think that's going to continue for a while?
I think it will continue. My situation is I'd like to find my own little place.
Your own little.
Apartment.
You want to be the king of your own.
Yeah.
But you can't let people smoke there if you're in public housing.
Oh no.
Yes.
None at all, huh?
The United States the Housing and Urban Development recently has passed a rule that you cannot smoke in any public housing anywhere in the United States.
Boy.
Which can be rough, especially if you're an 85-year-old woman who has been smoking all her life and now you're told, in the middle of winter you've got to go out onto the street corner and
Right.
smoke a cigarette. I think that's a human rights issue.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, a friend of mine in New York is bringing a lawsuit against the Department of Housing and Urban Development regarding this smoking ban, and I think she has a chance of winning. And but we'll see. I don't know. Cambridge was thinking about making the smoking ban in Cambridge somewhat less stringent.
Right.
And that would be very, very nice. What do you think? Do you believe smoking is as bad as they say it is? That's
No.
I mean, do you think they exaggerate? They talk about
Sure.
everybody dies. I mean, do you know people you think who are in pretty good health who smoke?
Yes.
Like who, for example?
You.
Well, thank you. I am, I'm surviving. I'm a few years older than you, I think. And I think Billy Flynn certainly looks very energetic and active.
Yeah.
And Paul seems to be, I heard Paul is he's a heavy smoker, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
And he's a real hard worker, right?
Oh, yeah.
And he does hard work. I mean,
Yes,
like
he does.
painting
Yeah.
stuff.
Painting, carpentry, yeah.
Plus, he does a lot of drinking. That's hard work,
It
too.
sure does.
That's a lot of hard work. Well, we're coming to the end of the smoking section, and you've been a great guest.
Thank you, Steve, for having me.